So welcome in. This is Forging the Falcons every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. I am Scott Kennedy. I am in Atlanta. And on this side over here, this is Nick Kendall. He is in Seattle. So we have coast-to-coast coverage this morning of the Atlanta Falcons and the NFL. And Nick, how are you this morning? Yesterday was kind of a tough day for, let's see, about 5 players on 30-something teams. So maybe 150 and change guys who, found out that they weren't going to be playing anymore. On their teams anyway, because there were cutdown day was the first one of the smaller ones as they worked their way down from 90 to 53. So how are you doing this morning?
I am doing well. Can't complain. A little tired. These 6 o'clock sometimes is a little bit. Oh, here we are. What day is it? But excited to be here and hoping that my weekend plans don't get ruined by lightning/weather. So watching that. Nick can't have nice backpacking trips. I think that's the rule. It's either 100 degrees, it's raining, or it's freezing. So here we are again. Now the lightning in the cards.
Well, yeah, that's the one you don't really want to mess around with for sure. That will end a day in a hurry when you start seeing some lightning. And summer in the South, you get plenty of evening thunderstorms that kind of tend to put sporting events on hold. Luckily, the Falcons play in a dome. Well, not luckily. They've got a retractable roof, so they can avoid that type of stuff. Let's say good morning to some folks in the chat. Jeremy Shaw was the first one in today. Say good morning, Scott and Nick, here to support the pod, and we appreciate you for that. U.S. Dave saying good morning. Up to observe. Well, I know you're going to participate a little bit as well. EJ says good morning, Nick and Scott. Let's talk football. And then Albert Knoppers coming in over on Facebook. And I know I've got at least one thumbs up from Steve Kennedy. Yeah, it's a family show. We're supporting it from the dad supporting the show this morning. So thank you for coming in early. And boy, Bangley YouTube, YT coming in over on YouTube saying good morning as well. So let's get into the news first, Nick. The Falcons made 4 cuts yesterday and an injured reserve. No big surprise names here or anything. Linebacker Rashad Smith, tight end Tucker Fisk, defensive back Trey Webb, and punter Seth Vernon. Cornerback Cornell Armstrong was placed on injured reserve. That got the team down to 85. Now, reading through a couple of those names, some of my initial reaction was, who?
Yeah.
Especially the one that seemed a little interesting to me was Tucker Fisk. Tucker Fisk saw two snaps against the Lions. So, you're not too surprised when a player that you've never heard of only gets 2 snaps. But he was at Stanford and he came undrafted out of Stanford as a tight end. He only caught 9 passes in his career at Stanford. So how did he end up at camp to begin with? That one surprised me a little bit. And I don't know if you have any other information on him or if you had heard of him before, but yeah, that one kind of caught me off guard. Linebacker Rashad Smith actually had a little bit of time in the NFL. He had seen action in a couple of games. Younger player out of Florida International, I believe, is where he came from. Saw some time with the Chicago Bears, haven't they all? Every Falcon,
Yeah.
And got 2 games in with the Philadelphia Eagles, but he was out too. So. We can hit in on a couple of these guys. I don't want to spend too much time on them again because most anybody listening, this will be the first time they've ever heard their names. So, I don't want to. There's nobody here. You're like, oh my goodness, that's kind of a surprise. So, what I want to ask you, Nick, is as you're perusing Twitter and seeing some of the names, were there any names that popped up across the waiver wire yesterday as 150 players became available that intrigued you a little bit, that caught your attention some?
The only one I can think of that I saw, and then granted I didn't do too much perusing, but I saw the Raiders moved on from former first-round pick Vernon Butler, interior defensive lineman out of Louisiana Tech, I believe, a 320-pound guy. Never really lived up to that first-round billing, being drafted in the first round by the Carolina Panthers. But that was one name that stood out to me that was like, oh, I know that one. I remember him wrecking some dudes for Louisiana Tech. But other than that, not really.
Yeah, they if anything, maybe the Jamar Johnson cut with the Denver Broncos, and one of the guys we work with on Mile High Huddle, Zach Kelberman, he called that one. We were doing a show the night before the cuts, and he said, "Watch this." And I was like, "Oh, I'll be a little surprised if he's cut that early." He was here. He was with the team last year. Picked in the 5th round, I believe.
Yep.
A 5th round pick. So I started immediately thinking, well, the Falcons could use some help in the defensive secondary. I wonder if his phone might ring a little bit. But when you're cut that early as a draft pick from the former years, that's almost an indication of character a little bit as well. What are you doing wrong besides your play on the field? That's the team was willing to move on that early in the process. I'm not saying, a second-year guy getting cut is not a huge surprise as a 5th-round pick, but, that early in the process that you're one of the first ones gone, that was a little bit surprising to me. Coming in over on Facebook, Keith Robbins coming in saying good morning. And not a face you like to wake up to every morning. You got to change a diaper, but that's not all so bad. That's kind of the view you get as long as they're into it. Otherwise, that can be a little tougher.
I bet.
Let's see. Jason Elsame says he may have been a camp body. Yeah, of course, talking about Tucker Fisk. But there's camp bodies with better resumes than 9 career catches at Stanford, who has a pretty good track record for tight ends. So, Jason, that Tucker Fisk was at camp at all with a pretty light collegiate resume. I mean, there's 300 football players that have tight ends that have better stats than that. So there was something. I don't know what it is, but there was some sort of connection there that got him to camp. But it certainly wasn't what he did at Stanford that got anybody's attention. Dom coming in saying, good morning, Scott and Nick. Dog Nation. Have a great day, my boys. Appreciate it. And Joe Cannon coming in also over on Facebook as the Facebook crowd is starting to ramp up. The Facebook crowd has really taken off over the past month. Facebook kind of strangles the distribution. They want you to build up your page, but then they won't tell anybody until you pay them. But I bet I've hit 500,000 people on Facebook this month from my Falcons page. So keep up the good work. Everybody watching, hit that like and share. It is absolutely a big help. It makes a big difference. Other cuts here. Seth Vernon, no big surprise. He was at Portland State last year. Cornerback Cornell Armstrong, we could see him again. Defensive back Trey Webb. He played 4 years as a defensive back at San Jose State, but he played some corner and then he was moved to safety. But he hasn't played in the NFL, so no big surprises there. Just kind of wanted to get that news out of the way.
Yeah, the other one that sticks out to me was that was waived from the NFL. Just doing a little research there. I did see this one. Lonnie Johnson, former 2nd-round pick, I believe, of the Cowboys, played at Kentucky. Maybe I'm mixing up my players there, but he was already moved on. He'll be on his 3rd team now, but he was actually waived and almost immediately picked up, waived by the Chiefs and picked up by the Tennessee Titans. Okay,
well, good for him. A lot of these guys will get multiple chances. Again, when you're talking about 90 players, on an active roster right now, and you got to get down to 53, that's almost half. So, there's going to be a lot of players available. We talk about roster moves and, who could you look for? And a lot of time you're in the wait and see mode right now.
Mm-hmm.
If the Falcons need some guys, they can wait until some of these guys are cut. There will be some pretty good players end up as salary cap casualties, depth options. If you try and hide a guy in a practice squad, maybe you're really good at wide receiver. There will be easy trade bait type of stuff. That was something else we could have hit on if we have time. Bleacher Report did a column on one player every team should trade. And they put Dion Jones on there for Atlanta. We've gone into the reasons why that doesn't necessarily make sense this year, but we can get into that a little bit later as well. Second part of the discussion I kind of wanted to talk about was the X factor. What is the X factor for this team? I mentioned Bleacher Report, and I'm kind of perusing there. They like to throw out these one something for every team type of articles, and they make for good conversation, which is what we're here for. And they said the X factor for the Atlanta Falcons was the play of Marcus Mariota. Moving on from Matt Ryan, Mariota's been a little bit of a journeyman, has shown flashes, and his play could help determine, I think they said the the direction almost of this team, not just the results, but the direction of this team. How much do you agree with that, Nick?
I mean, it's the quarterback position, right? And Mariota's a massive X factor because we haven't seen him starting for a few years. And when he did start last, it's been a mixed bag. Not really, I would say, totally explosive. Not a player that doesn't seem like he's able to go nuclear with his arm talent. But with the combination of smarts, athleticism, and accuracy, can really give a jolt to an offense and provide different ways to move the football, which, I mean, I guess it's not what it's all about in the end. It's all about scoring points. But definitely that leads to it. So I think him being the X factor makes a lot of sense. And he's just an X factor, not only for the Falcons, but in the league. I mean, former second overall pick, Oregon, interesting career to date, but still kicking around and still talented.
Yeah, I think they said, and I like the way that the writer put. I think that this one may have been Alex K. Christopher Knox wrote this one. He says, Mariota is an X factor because his play will determine Atlanta's goals and its direction over the next several months. Desmond Ridder could have a say in that as well, as far as the direction of the team. Desmond Ridder looked really good in his first preseason game, poised, didn't necessarily look like a rookie. And if his play continues, it could determine what the Falcons do in the draft next year when they could have a relatively high pick. The X factor for me, though, on this team, a bigger X factor, because for me, I don't think Mariota has a huge ceiling, and I don't think he's got a really low floor. I think I feel like we know what we're going to get. We're going to get competency with some dynamic plays, and I don't expect him to throw, 25 interceptions. I expect him to be solid. I expect him to be a solid quarterback. We'll see. But again, I don't expect, supernova, and I don't expect a tank. I expect solid. Now, the guy that we've seen for me, who we've seen tank and we've seen early on playing really well, is Caleb McGarry. The right tackle for me, after what I saw in the first game against the Detroit Lions, is more of an X factor for me because Caleb McGarry could cause this offense on his own to sink or swim. If everybody else is doing his job, Caleb McGarry has had games where he can ruin a game on his own.
Yeah.
So if he plays the way he did, and again, I want to be, I don't know if I'm overcorrecting here because I've been so harsh on him. I feel like I might be going a little overboard, but my expectations were low, but he was good. He was genuinely good against the Lions. And the early reports of him have been good. There hasn't been any talk about Jermaine Afridi coming in and pushing for him for his spot, which is a little disappointing. But if he's going to play like that, great. So I think of him as one of those X factors.
Yeah, no, he's definitely one of the options. For me, the Falcons have to move the needle so much that it almost has to be the quarterback for them. He is an X factor, but it's not like you have an established quarterback where you can move off of that. But definitely an X factor for the line. It's just, again, quarterback. Also, the rest of the line, if McGarry is solid, that'd be great, but you still have big question marks at left guard. Hennessy going to that next level. Is Jake Matthews anything but average, which average is fine. But if you're talking about, if everybody's fine, then it's nice to have a little bit better out there beyond that, reaching for better. So I agree with that. My other X factor here, I think, for this team would probably be, it's hard not to name just guys off on the defense play after play. Like who's opposite AJ Terrell? Massive X factor. They're going to avoid AJ Terrell this year. Does one of the edge rushers step up? Leonard Floyd, Arnold Ebiketie, Malone.
Lorenzo. This one's Lorenzo Carter.
What did I say?
Leonard Floyd.
Okay, Lorenzo Carter. The other
couple of dogs,
guy.
Couple of dogs, but
exactly.
different years.
Similar body types too.
Very similar. Easy to make that. I can keep them a little bit straight because I covered them both in high school, and Lorenzo's from 15 minutes from my house. I think he went to Norcross.
Okay, well that's definitely. Who steps up there? You're really going to need some edge rushers and pass rush to be an X factor. So I think Mariota's the right one. I think McGarry, you're correct, being the second one, and then after that, big question mark. And then we didn't even talk about the weapons as well, who make a lot of sense. The big two there for the big two on the pass catchers. Yeah,
for me, I think of it as variance is when I think X factors. Like, is Aaron Rodgers an X factor for the Green Bay Packers? No, you expect him to be really, really good. But if you want to look at it like he can pull a rabbit out of his hat. Is that an X factor? You never know when he's going to go, as you like to say, God mode. That could be the X factor. I just think of, okay, who's in the starting and who has the lowest floor versus a higher ceiling? Where's your variance there? For me, that's the X factor. Who's going to come in and be a surprise like that? And again, I feel like I know what to expect from Mariota. I don't know. I don't know if I'm giving him too much credit, because I expect him to be a good quarterback. I really do. I expect him to be good for the Falcons this year. Joe Cannon coming in saying good morning. And he had a follow-up on here also. He says, McGarry and Taquan Graham really caught my attention. Graham did for me too, as well. I thought he did one of the better jobs of dispatching the blocker in front of him. And I thought he had a solid outing. Arnold Ebiketie, is an X factor. How quickly can he hit the ground running? And let's see. And Dave says, comes in, he says, the so-called elite QB is so overrated and such an overused term. If you take out the outlier, who is Tom Brady, how many of these so-called elite QBs have won Super Bowls in the last 20 years? Well, that's kind of the problem. I don't know how old you are, Dave, but if you grew up during the MJ era, there's a lot of elite basketball players that didn't get rings because Michael Jordan was winning everything.
Yeah.
Going against those guys. But, who are some of the quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls recently?
Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes is elite. Matthew Stafford, he's an elite arm talent. Going back, ways, and then I'm like Tom Brady. Russell Wilson, he's in there. Aaron Rodgers hasn't won one in a while, but he's got one, and he's obviously elite. So, and the thing is the outlier on there of having, you don't even have to say elite, because if there's 10 elite quarterbacks, then what's elite really even mean? But you need to be in that top 10 range really to give yourself a chance, unless you have a fluke season, unless you Trent Dilfer your way to an outlier type of defense. Baltimore Ravens, where you've got a defense that is such an outlier that it just puts the stranglehold on everybody. And I think again, I'm not thinking Super Bowl with this team, but I'm thinking, if they're going to be good, I expect Mariota to be a pretty good player this year.
And just to peel back the curtain here, listening to NFL executives and people who work in the league and team building aspects, a lot of them think that just looking at who wins the Super Bowl is such a small data point with so much variance to get there that you are really pigeonholing yourself to one specific type of team building philosophy. So a lot of teams will look at the final 8 teams, the final 4 teams, the division winners, to see like what is sustainable and what actually is more likely to build yourself a winning model. So it's not just the Super Bowl winners, because again, it's a single elimination tournament. If you watched the, March Madness, you know how much a single elimination tournament can be wild. I mean, maybe it's less so in football, but still. So the elite quarterback, you can win without it, but it's definitely the ticket in the door. I like to think about it as, if you don't have the top 10 caliber quarterback, odds are you're not getting a ticket to the dance even.
And as you say, a lot of the times it helps. There's less fluctuation. So you may have, Dave mentions some of these guys. Now, Eli Manning would be a pretty good argument of whether he was elite or not. I mean, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Pretty good chance he ends up in the Hall of Fame. I'd put him on there. Peyton Manning was not an elite QB in Denver. Dave, do a Peyton Manning reference and look at his numbers in Denver. I think you'll be surprised.
2015. I think he means 2015.
Yeah, the year they won it, he may not have been playing at an elite level, or at least he may not have had elite numbers. But he
2013,
was absolutely an elite quarterback in Denver. X factors, but for me, Caleb McGarry is a big one as far as the ceiling. Now, Elijah Wilkinson, left guard, because again, when you talk about floor and ceiling, your left guard was the basement last year. Mm-hmm. Literally, it was the worst left guard in professional football, in Jalen Mayfield. So that gets improved. So again, they mentioned Marcus Mariota, which I understand. But, if you want to say quarterback, you can say quarterback for every team, as important as the team is. So, I want to go in a different direction on that one. And for me, it's Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry is an X factor. Now, some bold predictions. Bleacher also say, they were talking about who's ready to take a step to the next level, and they did the tiers of the next level from all the way from bench to really good player like Trey Lance, who's gonna burst onto the scene, to a guy who made a Pro Bowl and could even take the next level. Because you look at people's, like I said, I'm on Football Reference 25 times a day looking at players, and a lot of these guys will have one Pro Bowl next to their names, one little asterisk with a Pro Bowl next to their names. Kyle Pitts already has that, but is he ready to jump up and take the next step up where he's one, instead of one of 5 or 6 tight ends, can he be 1 or 2 or the one? Yes, Nick, I think he can.
Yeah.
He's strong enough to be a true tight end, where he can play inside and do the job in there and have to be matched up with bigger linebackers or bigger safeties who just aren't going to be able to keep up with him and cover him. He's a matchup nightmare without a doubt. He is still 21 years old. He's a mature kid, relatively learning the position. But is he ready to break out, to take a step up to the next level? Yes. Will he match the numbers of last year? Maybe. He should beat them with touchdowns. He only had 1. He's going to beat those touchdowns this year. I'm confident in saying that. Will Mariota and or Ritter be able to get him the ball as often as Matt Ryan was able to? Maybe. Yeah. I'd say probably, but not as sure that he's going to go 1,100 yards. He was just a shade over 1,000 last year.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Kyle Pitts progresses and how much having a better weapon around him plays off of that. If you want to talk X factors, Pitts being a big one, Drake London right there with him as a rookie wide receiver. I mean, used to be rookie wide receivers, they get a couple years to come in before they really start to take off, but has not been the case as of late. I don't know if it's more nuanced teaching of route patterns and getting off the line of scrimmage, release packages coming out of college. Maybe it's the 7-on-7 leagues. Maybe it's the NFL being less complicated for some of these guys with more spread concepts out there. But Drake London definitely is out there as well. Then we got Joe Cannon coming in with his family, sit on the steps. I always love to see that, Joe, saying Pitts has been working on his balance and hand fighting. He's going to be a major problem.
Major problem?
There you go.
No, I agree. Pitts is a baby. I mean, he is a baby. He is a 21-year-old kid. Calvin Ridley came in. Calvin Ridley turned 24 in his rookie season. This is his second year in the league. He's going to start the year at 21 years old. He is a baby. So I don't think he turns until the end of September. He doesn't turn 22. And he's going to be a major problem for sure. As Nick said, though, can you get him the ball? There's definitely ways. If you can, the mobility, the rollouts and stuff should be able to buy some time. And he's going to be priority number 1 for the Falcons, but that also means he's priority number 1 for the defenses. One of the questions last year is, why isn't he scoring more touchdowns? I remember looking at a piece of film, and he was bracketed by 4 guys. 4 guys were around Kyle Pitts in the red zone. Out of like his 106 targets I read, he only had like 13 or 14 in the red zone last year. I think he had 4 guys around him. So it's like, let anybody beat him. Blizzard Mike R comes in. He says, when is the Falcons' next preseason game? I know Marlon Davis better play next game. Smack my head. Shake my head. I know. Inside joke. I said smack one time. So sometimes I feel like smacking my head on this. They play Monday night, Blizzard Mike. They've got the game against the Jets. How did the Falcons get these marquee matchups with the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets? It feels a little bit like last season's schedule, where the Falcons were able to squeeze out 7 wins in 1-score games, and against some bad teams. Well, like the New York Jets, like the Detroit Lions. So they play the Jets on Monday night. Should be fun though. Marlon Davison. It's time, right, Mike? I mean, if it's not this year, he's done. If it's not this camp, he may be done. Third year, it's time. It is definitely time. Second round pick out of Auburn, I believe. It is definitely time for him. Chris Walker says, morning, guys. Y'all moved up your show's start time between that and certain platforms, algorithms, and other issues. I've been late the past 2 weeks. Yeah, we've been going probably for 2 months at 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesdays. And then we'll go at 8:45 on Mondays, Chris. So we'll be on there. And, don't be afraid to hit us on YouTube also. Because, we try and find you in different ways. And one of the folks who is able to find us, good morning, Nick and Scott. I have no problem calling Peyton Manning elite. Love you guys. Coming in with the stars. Thank you for the stars, Gary. As always, a big supporter of everything we do. And our first stars of the day. Yeah, we can do stars and we can do super chats on wherever you're watching. If you like what you're seeing, you can contribute to the show with likes, shares, stars, super chats, and being here and being part of the show is also. So Kyle Pitts ready to take that next step. I'm going to say another player, and then I'm going to give you and let you take one. How about Richie Grant? Richie Grant was a second round draft pick, and I had him written in as a starter last year, and it didn't happen, which is okay. It is okay, but he is not a baby. He was not a 20-year-old kid coming in. He was 24. So I think he's 25 now, because I'm not positive he was 24 last year. I'd have to look it up, but he's an older player. He didn't come in the league as a 20-year-old kid or a 21-year-old kid like Jalen Mayfield did. He was a few years older. I want him to contribute a little faster. The early returns from Richie Grant so far have been positive. He needs to step up in a big way and become a legit starting caliber, at least average safety in the NFL, Nick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, using a second round pick on him, that's at a position where you can typically find, war average safeties rounds 3 through 5. Needs to be a solid player. It was also a pretty early second round pick, right? 40.
They traded down because that was the pick that
the Broncos.
They sent the Broncos for that took Javonte Williams, and then they traded down and took Richie Grant, which I thought was brilliant. And then they got Drew Dahlman also. With that 4th round pick they got back from the Broncos, they got Drew Dahlman. So they got Drew Dahlman and Richie Grant for Javonte Williams. I think Broncos are pretty happy so far with the return on that trade.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So who have we listed so far? We have Richie Grant. We have
Richie Grant and Kyle Pitts. The one that just makes my heart hurt, Nick, is that was the 35th pick that the Falcons traded away for, and the Broncos used to take Javonte Williams. You know who went 36?
Javon
Holland, safety, Miami Dolphins, who looks like a Pro Bowler.
Yep.
That one is like,
yeah.
And again, it's not the players that you miss that kill you. It's the ones that you get and can't play. And right now, Richie wasn't very good last year. So if Richie steps up and plays, okay, so we didn't get to Javon Holland. We got Richie Grant instead. I'm okay with that. But Richie needs to step up and move that. Richie needs to step up and take that next step to the next level, to solid starter, from reserve to at least average starter in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, I'll stick in the secondary. I think the next one for me then, kind of touched on him earlier when we were talking about him, but Casey Hayward, given his age at the cornerback position, if he could be.
You don't expect him to take a step up, though.
But an
back in the X factors.
Yeah, I was thinking X factor. Okay, so step up then for this team. Well, you kind of have to talk about the likes of, it's hard to say step up for the players that you just drafted. It's hard with this roster.
Right.
Big one. Okay. Matt Henningsen then stepping up this season. He's already sounded like he's stepped up some. He's looked definitely like the better starter to me. I was particularly watching that battle versus the Detroit Lions versus him and Dahlman. And I thought Henningsen looked pretty darn good out there. Now, granted, the Lions don't have totally dynamic interior defensive linemen out there. I did like Aleem McNeil coming out of NC State 2 years ago, but no real banner names on the interior defensive line. But I thought Henningsen looked like a better player than last year, more in control. And I think the feet to the fire, his, 3rd year in the league now, it looks like it's starting to come together for him. Liked him a good bit coming out of Temple. I don't think he's going to be a superstar center, but we talked about Dave earlier. How many superstar centers have won Super Bowls over the last few seasons? Jason Kelce, that's maybe where the list ends. So Matt Henningsen, I know he's just the center, but the center can be a really important linchpin on that offensive line, and especially as he gains experience, hopefully that'll help the entire offensive line. Second year in the system, outside zone run game. I mean, he really seems one that could be a big step forward guy this year.
Yeah, I hope so. You're doing the Purcell defensive tackle Mike thing that I'm doing.
Oh,
Hennessy.
Why did I say Henningsen?
He's smooth like cognac. Matt Hennessy is smooth like cognac.
Yep.
Matt Henningsen is a new draft pick interior defensive lineman that lines up over the center.
Yep.
And again, I still have to really think about it. And then I get in my head and can't think, all right, Purcell, Mike and Mike, both nose guards. Which team? Oh, crap.
Yep.
I forget. Terry comes in. He says, Richie is a safety, not a nickel. He was forced to play nickel because of Oliver injury. You know who else was forced to play nickel, which told you just how bad the depth was Avery Williams. Where's Avery Williams playing this year instead of covering CeeDee Lamb like he did in the nickelback for against the Dallas Cowboys? He's playing running back. That's how bad it was last year. Now, Richie was tried at nickel. He was drafted as a safety. He had Deron Harmon. He had Eric Harris ahead of him. He didn't play nickel. He played nickel because he was one of the only bodies left. He didn't play safety because he didn't beat those guys out.
Yeah.
So that comes down to it. So why didn't he look good at nickel? Because he's not a nickelback. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. He didn't look good at safety either. That's the problem. So he has played much better so far this spring, summer, fall. They call this fall camp, even though we're still in the dog days of summer. But he was at nickel because he wasn't at safety. And he wasn't at safety because he couldn't beat out two journeymen. Javon Holland would have been playing safety for this team, not nickel. Again, so Richie needs to take that step up. And I'm really, so far, again, year two, the early returns have been positive. And I do like that. Step up, Taquan Graham. Interior line, 5th round pick. Again, you look at the draft and you say, oh, we got a bunch of starts from Ogundeji at edge, from Taquan Graham at tackle, 4th, 5th round draft picks. Yeah, but they were forced in there, kind of like Terry was just saying about Richie Grant. Oh, well, you had 3 starters from your draft class. Yeah, but they weren't good. They were thrown in there. Jalen Mayfield, he started 16, 17 games at left guard. Yeah, but he was drafted as a right tackle. He's 21 years old and hadn't played at Michigan. He only played 14 games. You didn't want to have to use those guys. So you ask yourself, was this draft really good? Or was Taquan Graham really good? Or was it just there was nobody else? Taquan Graham in the preseason looked good. He took a step up. Let's keep progressing that way, kid. It's not your fault you were forced into that position last year. Now, take advantage of it. You got thrown to the Wolves last year. You weren't the only one. He looked good week 1, preseason game 1 against the Detroit Lions. And having him make us forget about Marlon Davis and Taquan make that position your own. Grady Jarrett, you at least got 2 of the 3 spots figured out in a 3-4.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I guess stepping up, another guy listed as a starter right now is Ogundeji. I know that you have Ebiketie and Malone right behind him. You have Lorenzo Carter. Yes, Lorenzo Carter. Which one is it? Also out there, but Ogundeji, 5th round pick last year. It's got a rotational basis. Probably ends up being a rotational player in his career on this rookie contract, but he's the starter right now. And even if he, maybe is not as dynamic as a pass rusher as Malone / Ebiketie, there is definitely meat on the bone as a first and second down pass rusher if he can be a good run defender and edge setter, because Malone and Ebiketie have work to do there. So we got Blizzard Mike.R coming in here saying, you gentlemen have an awesome podcast. I just subscribed. Thank you so much, Blizzard Mike. We appreciate that. Hope you're having a good hump day. And also Michael Ronquillo, familiar face there, rocking the Russell Wilson profile picture on YouTube, saying good morning, Scott and Nick on Forging the Falcons.
Yep. Good morning, Michael. Welcome in out of Tucson, Arizona. My son's doing his states and capitals right now. And, you think of just the biggest city all the time. You're like, wait, what's the capital? Phoenix, Flagstaff, Tucson? It's got to be one of those, right? But coming in from Tucson, and as Chris reiterates, we started a little bit on this. He says, Caleb McGarry, right tackle, played well. I mean, it was Detroit, but he looked good for real. Yeah, he did. He did. Very, very encouraging. And Chris, I mentioned him as my X factor for this team because of the wide variance he can get. Now, the variance shouldn't be quite as bad because Jermaine Afridi is better than the worst of Caleb McGarry, right? Yeah. So when we talk raising the floor of the room, that's what Jermaine Afridi did. So the play at right tackle should be better than it was last year because Jermaine Afridi is better than what bad Caleb McGarry was last year. Good Caleb McGarry is going to be better than Jermaine Afridi. So we want to see a good Caleb McGarry. Terry says, no, he didn't play because he couldn't beat them out. He wasn't ready as a rookie. Eric and Duran were a veteran presence. He wasn't going to beat those guys out because they knew the defense already. And they're vets because he couldn't beat them out, stop the madness. That's fine. I disagree. He wasn't very good last year. That's how you can put that. However you want to put it, Richie Grant was not very good as a rookie. Like you said, he wasn't ready. Okay, I agree. He wasn't.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm ready for him to be ready. That's my whole point. I want Richie Grant to step up and be ready. I want him to play safety. I want him to be good. And so far, the earlier returns are good on it.
Yeah, he's big thing with Richie Grant. Again, this is my issue with him coming out of UCF. Just his tackling ability. And that's one thing that, he's been standing out in training camp and everything. Well, training camp is good and you want him to stand out there, but there's a level of run fit and physicality that you just are not getting from training camp. The ability to come downhill, screaming downhill at the right time to fill the gap, especially in lighter boxes. And Richie Grant really struggled with that at UCF. A lot of broken tackles. So curious to see how that looks going forward. He's definitely an X factor for this team. The other thing about him being an X factor is he's more of the, God, I don't want to put this on, but the Jamar Johnson, it almost sounds like a Jamar Johnson scouting report where a lot of his value comes from the turnovers, but you're not going to get as many turnover opportunities if your front seven, specifically your defensive line, is not getting after it. So hopefully he plays out this year, but I think that I don't want to say the bust word on him. It's way too early for that, but there should be a little bit of concern given where he was drafted and how little he played year one for a position that typically you see at least flashes going in there. And also talk about the guys in front of him. Not impressive either. So it's not like there was a stalwart guys that he couldn't beat out.
Yes, and also on Dave coming in here real quick, he says, if McGarry has near a Pro Bowl season, would any of you guys extend or franchise him or let him walk? If he's playing well, you offer him a contract. No doubt about that. You offer him a contract. Do you use a franchise tag on him? No. It's too expensive. You take the top 5 highest paid offensive linemen and take their average salary, and that's what you get for 1 year guaranteed. That's in the neighborhood of $18.5 million for a right tackle. So no, you wouldn't franchise him. But you would absolutely offer him, say, in the neighborhood of 3 years, 40 million, 25 guaranteed. That would be about right for a good starting right tackle. And Terry's still arguing. He's just beating the hell out of this straw man. He was solid. Richie Grant wasn't solid. That part I'll disagree on. This is the NFL. How's your first couple of months of podcasting? Did you get better over time, or did it just automatically click for you? Terry, that's the point I'm making. Absolutely. He's a guy I think is ready to make that jump this year because he wasn't very good last year. That's okay. He's a rookie. I think he's going to be much better this year. The straw man's taking a beating, dude. We agree on this. I don't know why you're arguing with me on it. Mark Schrader says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Coming in with some stars. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Good morning to you as well.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. Good to see you.
Dave says Phoenix area has 3 of the top 4 cities. Tucson is second with 550. I would imagine Phoenix is number 1, but my point was I don't know what the capital is. Is the capital Flagstaff? Or is it Phoenix?
So.
Or is it Phoenix? You'd think it'd be Phoenix, but you get to some of these states and it's like the 8th smallest city is the capital. Who would think Tallahassee, Florida? Wait a minute. Why? Tallahassee's an afterthought. That's where Florida State is. And it is Phoenix. Okay, good.
I don't remember.
There we go. And then here's a good question from Albert Knoppers. Who are the next 5 guys on the depth chart, that you think are in danger? Because the next group of cuts is next Tuesday. You went from 90 to 85 yesterday. You've got a week to go from 85 to 80. And then the next 7 days is the big one. That's when you go from 80 to 53. Taking a look at this, there are still 12 wide receivers. That ain't going to happen.
No.
Tyshawn James, Jared Bernhardt. Bernhardt actually had a touchdown. Stanley Berryhill, Cameron Batson, Frank Darby. I'm rooting for him because I love the guy. Could be on the outside looking in. Geronimo Allison. So at least one of those guys would be of the next 5. Guard. You got some of the rookies in there. They should be okay. Justin Schaefer, I'd expect him to be okay. But Rick Leonard at left tackle. Who? Ryan Newsel at center. Yeah, that's in trouble. Jonathan Harrison at other guard. What
an interesting spelling of Jonathan.
Yeah.
Just for that name. See ya. No.
Kenoy Dang, Nate Landeman at linebackers. So there's plenty of names on here that you could lose, and you'd have to really look them up to say, who are these guys? So there's still plenty of names on there. Again, you're at 90. There's 37 players that are going to be cut in the next 13 days. So it's going to be and frankly, it'll end up being more than that, because I bet you dollars to donuts, a couple new guys come in too. Mm-hmm. So there will be more than those changes, more of those changes for sure. So we're going to wrap it up here shortly. We've gone just about 45 minutes already, which is typically where we are. And I said I'd hit this in the beginning. The trade bait for every team, and Dion Jones was the one that made the list for, it keeps getting talked about. We need to trade that guy. We need to cut that guy. Nick, I've said this a zillion times, but explain to me why that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Dion Jones, big contract, linebacker, his age. You're probably not going to get big return. Also, he's on the pup right now, and you probably have to pass a physical to get traded. So maybe you can trade him. Maybe you can clear some money off the books, but I would not be expecting a large return for him because of where he's at in his career and the position he plays. Also, the body type. I know he's been a good linebacker, and if you can play, you can play. But I feel like with it becoming more of a too high game and less linebackers on the field, you need a little bit more length at the linebacker position. It's one of the reasons that the only first-round linebacker in this last draft was Quay Walker, and you have Nakobe Dean falling all the way to the 3rd round. The body type, body beautiful for the linebacker position, I think, does matter for the evaluation process. Now, talking out of both sides of my mouth here, linebacker is one of the most busted first-round positions because people fall in love with the body beautiful types rather than the instincts from the neck up area, which really matters for the linebacker position and the safety position and the center position. But again, just a lot of these factors make me think, like, what are you getting? If you're not eating a lot of the contract, maybe you get a 4th round pick, maybe, but I'm thinking 5th, maybe a combination of like a 5th and a 7th for Dion Jones plus the contract.
Yeah, the money doesn't make sense. They're like, oh, you could save $14 million if you trade him. That's if someone pays him $14 million.
Yeah.
You're going to take a $10 million. He's got a $24 million dead cap hit if you were to cut him. Okay. So you actually lose $4 million off your cap if you cut him, because he's got a $20 million cap hit with a $24 million dead cap hit. So if you were to move on from him, yeah, I could save $14 million if someone else paid that $14 million. Who's going to pay $14 million for Dion Jones right now?
Oh man,
you wouldn't have to trade him. If you could get anybody that would send you $14 million and say, we'll pick up his base salary and his roster bonus at 14 and change, take him. Send us a 7th. We'll trade 7ths, just to make that happen, to make it look like we're actually making a trade. So this year, that doesn't make sense at all. Next year, his dead cap number drops to $5 million. that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they've been eating. So it just doesn't make a ton of sense. Dave coming in with a big yellow super. Thank you, Dave, our first super of the day. So, guys, overall, I like Coach Smith's interaction with the media, but he has to be careful with some of his snarkiness because it will not age well if the Falcons are not winning. That reminds me, Dave, and thank you for coming in and reminding me. I wanted to play this clip, speaking of snarkiness. So listen here real quick. He does not like it at all when people ask about players. Not like, how's the quarterback room looking, but Marcus Mariota. And he especially doesn't like it about rookies. So I don't recognize the voice on here. I recognize a lot of the guys and gals that cover the Falcons, but I didn't recognize this voice, so I don't know who said it. But he basically wanted to get a soundbite about Tyler Algier, who did a good job blocking, picked up a nice blitz, and said, is that normal for a young guy to do that? And this is what he had to say.
I know he's getting a lot of credit for it. You probably just pulled up the one highlight, right? Yeah. So, yeah, two, I'm glad maybe we'll get you in our meeting room. Make sure we're grading it right. But also,
that was unnecessary. That was unnecessary. We'll get you in the meeting room, make sure we're grading it right. I probably would have said, okay, good. I'm available and I'm pretty good at it. I can help. Love to, but that's not what I was asking. So I agree with you on this. And it kind of went on.
Seriousness, pleased so far with him.
You've moved to afternoon practices now here and there. Tomorrow's afternoon practice. But what is there a reasoning behind that?
You checked our schedule?
I have.
We got a lot of 1 o'clock kickoffs, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is really simple.
Now, I'll admit, I laughed my ass off when I saw that part. I thought the shot at the okay, well, we'll get you and make sure we're grading it right. That was unnecessary.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to say, okay, it's a stupid question. And I've been interviewed before when I was, more of doing analyst stuff. And the reporter will ask you the same question 3 different ways, trying to get the answer that they want for a narrative that they've already built. It's like, I'm writing the story. I need a quote to fill out my story. I'm going to keep asking you until I get it to fit the narrative I've already done. That's irritating. That's really irritating. But Dave, I feel like the snarkiness has really come out in year 2. And this could be we're still preseason, dude. It could be a really long year. It could be a really long year. And I love it. He says, Coach Smith doesn't care about your feelings. I get that, but part of the head coach's job is PR. He'll care about it when the fans, you take the temperature and the fans are calling for your head, and again, the other part of this, though, Derek, is I've always said, why don't more coaches act like Bo Pelini? Bo Pelini, I call this when you get a D1 coaching job, a Power 5 coaching job, or NFL job, you've got FU money. I'm set for life, let alone a guy who is the son of the FedEx heir fortune. He came into this thing with FU money.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever have to work again. So I kind of like it. But again, I think that the shot about Tyler Algier, maybe we'll get you in the room, see if we're grading it right. It was a fairly innocent question. I can play the whole clip. It's on my channel on YouTube, but it was a fairly innocent question. It wasn't too terrible. It wasn't even that terrible at all. He's like, does it surprise you that he was, this good a blocker? Well, we just watch one clip. Oh, 2. Yeah. Well, then correct me. So, then correct me on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you haven't watched everything and he's really struggled, but he did a good job there. We want to see more of that.
Yep.
When the media starts turning on you, you're in trouble. It's true.
Yep.
You can tell the state-led media, which these guys are with their credentials, the Falcons hold credentials over their heads. They have to toe a line. They can't be quite as honest as Nick and I can be here. They have to toe a line there. So when you start seeing those state-led media guys start to turn a little bit, it's over for that coach. It's over because they don't have to maintain that relationship anymore. Anyway.
Yeah, and also it's a symbiotic relationship. The media is not going away. Access is part of the game. And if you're going to be miserable to the media who are asking questions, trying to do their job, and granted, I understand some of the media is miserable themselves and hard to deal with, seeing that covering or seeing other teams in their coverages. But at the same time, they're going to be there every day. And if you want to sour that relationship and be like that, you're not going to have a good time either, because they're going to come at you equally hostility. They'll match energy, as they like to say. So that early for preseason for a pretty tame, innocuous question there. Are you impressed with Tyler Allgeier's blocking? Seems to be something got him unhinged there. That maybe not unrelated there, but I don't know. I'll have to keep an eye on that, because that can be interesting.
You kind of ask yourself, if you're that upset about this that doesn't really matter, what's really bothering you? What's really bothering them is they're getting really damn tired of being told how bad they are.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And this was an open practice. This was one with the fans were there. So that one surprised me a little bit. Albert comes in, he says, so which is your favorite team, Scott? The Falcons or Broncos? Albert, that's easy. I got a favorite team. Here, Chelsea, right here. That's my favorite team. That's where I've poured my fandom. I went to Auburn. I don't know that I watched 2 Auburn football games last year. The fandom part of football has been a job for over 20 years. It's not a fandom. I pour my fandom into places where I'm not professionally invested. But good question. On that note, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate everybody for joining us. Our super chat superstars, Dave, Mark. We had other stars coming in from Gary. Naturally, couldn't forget Gary. So thank you so much. We will be back Monday morning. I guess it'll be a preview. We'll do Monday for a preview heading into the Monday night game, and then we'll do a reaction on Wednesday. Until then, any last words? We're going to head over to Beckoning the Broncos. Might be a couple minutes late because the stream's not set up yet, and I have to do that for her. So any last words before we get going?
Nothing much. Thanks you guys for having us today. I see Derek saying not bad. Alex Ferguson was the worst. He'd ban reporters after a bad question. Yeah, when you're the manager of, was that Man United there, or was that Arsenal? Either way, a little bit more.
Sir Alex Ferguson. I was sure until you say Sir Alex Ferguson, I didn't even so he may have. I'm not sure if he meant that's who that was. But Sir, I'm not even used to seeing the name Alex Ferguson without Sir Alex Ferguson in front of it. But no, Derek, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't, like I said, but neither was a question. I just thought that one was a little unnecessary. I'm actually going to keep. I've got 3 good ones already of him, going after guys. And that's just in the first 2 weeks. I'm going to put together kind of a greatest hits of Arthur Smith going after guys. What a stupid question, Josh. That one was a couple weeks ago. That one's got about 17,000 views on my page. Edge. What edge are you talking about? That's ridiculous. That one was kind of funny. On that note, we got to go. We will see you back tomorrow morning on Mile High Huddle on Broncos for Breakfast. So that is the next time you will see us, and we look forward to seeing you there. For Falcons fans, we'll see you next Monday, 8:45 a.m. And that's about it. That will be next time. Have a good day, everybody.